Happy Third Thursday, everybody. And now let's talk automation.
Alrighty, folks, not only are we going to talk automation today, but now I'm in the driving seat. So Emma, OG, and Ian, welcome to my question and answer session. Good to see everyone. Everyone, thanks for coming to another Third Thursday event. If you wouldn't mind, as per usual, pop into the comments where you're dialing in from, and please, please, please get involved. Today's going to be a super episode. We're looking at the human side of transformation, and why Emma's not in the question seat is because this is one of our specialist areas. So I'm looking forward to ask questions, and it'll be good to see Ian and OG. On the 1-year anniversary of their book, we get to talk to both of them. So, folks, if you don't mind...
Here, I have it as well, ready.
I'm missing out here. I need a book. Emma, where's our book? And we need to give one away.
Oh, there we go. Ian's got ours for us.
Fantastic. If there was ever a plug, it's now plugged. So let's jump in because we run out of time every time we do this. So Ian, let's start with you. Give us the 1-minute introduction and tell us a little bit more about you and this specialist area today, sir.
Sure. Thank you. Thrilled to be here. Love what you guys are doing. It's amazing. I love your energy and your tenacity and your consistency. So thank you for letting me be a guest. I've loved the world of work for a long time. I've been in it, did outsourcing, found myself in the right place, right time to do the automation stuff. So RPA, co-founded an RPA consultancy that helped shape and educate the world. It was such an amazing journey. Got to meet such incredible people all over the planet, and then sold that company. Served in a big public company for a little while, and now am sort of on a sabbatical / journey as I further explore what the future of work is and who the workers of the future in the future of work are, and what matters most to us. And I'm also playing with telling stories on YouTube and writing books and other courses on LinkedIn, etc. That's me. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you. And for anybody who hasn't seen Ian's blogs, you need to do follow on LinkedIn and on TikTok as well. OG, over to you, sir. And I'm glad we all got the uniform message. Good to see. Go.
Yes. So my name is OG. I am in this business for many years, in the business of automating and transforming clients. The background is very typical. I've done that in large corporation forever, and I am actually running my own company since about a year, and we are helping clients, large and medium-sized clients, rolling out, scaling, understanding, and achieving outcome. One of the things that is really important for me that I focus on all the time, and that I say most of the time, is that I try. It's very difficult. I try not to care about technology. Since we are in a technology environment, I try not to care on the technology, so we can focus on everything else, and that everything else is really important. So today we're going to talk about people, but it's really important to look at other things that are not tool related to be able to manage correctly transformation, right? So I typically avoid talking about technology so I can talk about everything else, including the return on investment, including, the time to value, including all the bad news around TCOs and all that, right? So I try to be the ROI guy, and I try to really do that by, avoiding the new shiny objects, right? That's really what I try to do.
Fantastic. So we are going to dig into some of those outcomes today, which would be really darn useful because, as you say, too often people focus on the tech, but it isn't about the tech. And our very own Emma, if you don't mind, Emma, people have met you, but we always get new audience members. Give us your 1 minute, please. And good to see you.
Well, hello, everybody. And I feel like I have to say happy Third Thursday, even though Kieran's in the driving seat. I do that every month and I have to get it out there. My name is Emma Roloff. Typically, I am in the driving seat asking Kieran and our other friends questions, but I raised my hand and said, I'm too obsessed with people-driven change to sit in the background for this one. So I'm going to be taking a couple of questions from Kieran, but my day job is working with my clients to help them manage digital transformation. kind of piggybacking off of what OG said, I sell software. That's what I do for a living. Yet for some reason, I can't stop talking about people and why they are the important part of a transformation. So I've been at it not quite as long as everybody else on the call, but I feel like I'm a part of the crew with my matching turtleneck today. Coincidentally, we all just wore the black. So I took off my vest so that I could fit in with the crew a little bit more today.
Yes, men and lady in black today. So here, let me jump in and let's get into the questions because we always run out of time. OG, let's start with you. A moment ago, you mentioned focusing on the outcomes of automation, not automation itself. How does that help us adjust our lens when we consider transformation in general?
Yeah. So the typical mistake, right, is to start with the tool, acquire the tool, and then try to understand, what is possible and what I could do with that tool. And then you typically end up with, licenses on the shelf. So you basically fail, right? So the point here is really to have a business-centric approach when you try to do a transformation, including automation, right? So understanding what the company strategic directions are, what are the key goals, how you can positively impact the businesses, i.e. the P&L. And once you understand all those goals, you understand the key KPIs that are attached to that, then you basically identify what is the expected outcome that you're looking for, right? Cost savings, quality improvement, speed, customer experience, employee experience. You start with the goal, you start with the addressable space, you start with an understanding of what you are expecting in terms of return. And once you have that clear and you know exactly where you want to focus, so that's typically activity that we used to do manually in the discovery. Now there's plenty of tools kind of helping you doing the analysis. But the point is, you don't look at how you do it, you look at what you want to do it, you align with the business. And once you have this, then it's very, very easy to, come up with the use cases and then select the right technology, right? So the outcome is king. There's too many people being stuck with technology. They don't know what to do with it. That's simply because they don't start with the business view of the transformation. They start with the technology view. And that's a basic mistake.
Thank you. And Ian, if we come to you as our guest, and happy anniversary as well, by the way, what's the ultimate goal of transformation and change as a society, not just in terms of corporations or enterprises?
Right, that's not a big question at all. So I'll draft off OG for a moment and just totally agree. I think the thing about the shiny object is it's shiny. It's exciting to talk about. Certainly makes you feel like you're being progressive and modern by having that discussion, and it's purchasable. You can buy it. And so we saw so much in the last 5-6 years, even longer, 10 years, in the RPA space. People went out and bought those licenses because it was a thing that they could do. It felt like they were making progress, and then they ended up on the shelf because there wasn't a particular end goal in mind for the enterprise specifically. So that's somewhat of a micro view of how do we transform our onboarding process or our mortgage sort of validation certification process or our accounts payable or our supply chain logistics order management processes. That was the end goal they should have been shooting for is a better process, more efficient, more lean, therefore creating a better outcome, happier customers that stuck around and kept doing business with you. If you expand that to the macro view then, and you ultimately look at what are the characteristics we talked about a lot in this whole adoption of intelligent automation was it made your people more effective because it gave them a chance to be human. It gave them a chance to bring creativity and empathy and a more sort of nuanced view to the work that they did for the purposes of creating a better outcome. And if you expand that further, unleashing people, unleashing resources that are tied up inefficiently, removing the friction that exists in every enterprise, no matter how big, small, old, young, you then have resource you can make decisions about how to apply. And you can apply those resources various different ways. From the enterprise lens, you apply them to make better products, make better services, be more proactive about supporting your customers, reach out to them rather than just wait for them to call you and say, this thing is painful and it broke or it isn't supporting me the way that I thought it would. And then in a macro global level, you can use those resources to do things like, and we speak about this in the book, effectively what isn't going as well as we would globally hope would be going well. That's things like big macro things like healthcare, like education, like environmental stewardship. And so if you have the resources and the time and the ability, then if you think as a global citizen and you invest as a global citizen with a long view of an outcome that better serves all global citizens today and tomorrow, then you start to focus on how, as an enterprise, you can be more of a proactive global citizen and focus on sustainability in health and education, in environment, etc.
Fantastic, thank you. And Emma, I get the pleasure of actually asking you a question today, and I notice we're both very good here. No one's on mute or calling each other out here. That's a
I
record
did
for
just
us.
unmute before we came back in as a large group, so staying on the toes.
Well, let's see if we get you before the end of this. So look, at the center of everything that we're talking about is your specialist subject here, if you don't mind me saying, and that's people and change management. What can organizations do to best support their people during this dramatic change that's happening as they digitally transform?
Well, I think so. The first answer to that just simply is to say there needs to be a formalized change management program that goes along with your digital transformation and recognition of the fact that people are what's driving this forward. It's not the technology, going back to what we were saying at the beginning. And I say it all the time, and I will probably say it again before we're done today, but it is not about the technology. It doesn't matter how great the tool is that you've got in place. If your people are not adopting it, you're getting nowhere with it. And so, there are lots of people that will talk about detailed, repeatable, scalable change management programs that you can bring in. There's tons of really great companies that are out there that are helping customers manage this process and kind of coming in specifically for that avenue. But if you don't have the opportunity to have consultants come in and build out this repeatable change management program for you, I always talk about that there's 3 really simple things that you can do that will at least get you headed in the right direction on that change management side and acknowledge that people are a part of the process. And so the first is communicating the why behind what you're doing. Ian and OG just talked about the outcomes of what intelligent automation is supposed to bring forward for an organization and what the ultimate goal is. But at the end of the day, every single person, whether you're sitting on this call or joining us on the live stream, we're all selfish at our core. And we want to understand why we're doing things and what's in it for us. And that's no different when it comes to how we do our job. And so if a change is coming at us and we don't understand the purpose behind it and how that's going to impact us directly, we're not going to adopt the change. So you need to do a really good job of not just saying, hey, we're digitally transforming, this is what we're doing, and this is how we're doing it. You need to help them understand what that outcome is going to mean for them and why they should support the change, why they should be excited, and how it's going to impact them as an individual. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go around walking from desk to desk having that conversation with everybody. There might be a couple of people that need that, but ultimately just really clear communication behind the ultimate goal and working backwards and giving people time to figure out that what's in it for me statement is going to be incredibly impactful in terms of getting them to the point where they are working collaboratively towards that ultimate goal of change. And once you've done a really good job of communicating that why on the front end, that communication cannot stop. You have to continue communicating good, bad, indifferent, every little update that you have throughout the implementation at regular intervals so that people understand what happens. I'm going to ask a question and hopefully we'll see comments coming in as we're talking about it. But how many people have been a part of a change where they heard change was coming and then it went silent and nothing ever happened and they don't know what happened to it? That starts to give people a sense that they can't trust that that change is going to make a difference, or the things that they're getting excited about aren't going to happen. So even if something goes off the rails, help explain why, help explain what lessons you've learned throughout. And so we've seen some of our customers do this really effectively with like regularly scheduled lunch and learns, where people can come and listen if they want to about where the progress is going, or using updates on like an intranet or an email newsletter, or whatever that looks like individually for your organization. Communication has to continue throughout the entire implementation. And then my favorite part, when you get to the good stuff at the end and you have this solution that's been implemented, talk about the value, celebrate the value, share those stories internally. Because the more that you talk about how change is impacting the organization and those outcomes that you promise at the front end, and sharing those stories, the more that digital transformation energy is going to kind of start to percolate below the surface, and you're going to get buy-in from other people around the organization. And then you're really going to truly hit that point where you're innovatively thinking, and I don't know if that's actually a word, but you're thinking with innovation. and that you're getting to this point where you're building on yourself and you really get that momentum going. But without that celebration and that communication from start to finish, you're never going to get there.
Oh, wow. Now I understand why this is your specialist area, because you know it so well. And it's interesting you and Ian have picked up on the same thing, the business outcomes. There's a great comment, by the way, someone's made as we're live here, talking about technologies, the driver, but people are the enabler or the blocker. And I've sometimes seen that in firms. But let me come to you, Ian. Have you seen organizations support upskill and include their people in their change efforts really successfully to make or help people become enablers, not blockers, in this digital transformation process? You're on mute, sir. Mute bingo.
We knew it was going to happen.
I did it. It was going to happen. Okay. Yes is the answer. And what I said silently just a moment ago. I thought you were commenting on Nick Andrews' comment about us being a boy band. That was also a great comment. So thank you, Nick. He thinks we should move in sync too.
Exactly.
We'll do that in one moment when we get back on. Nick, we need a name, by the way.
That's the TikTok.
That's right. And so 1,000 times yes to what Emma just said. And yes, by dumb luck and sort of virtue of having several courses on LinkedIn Learning. So that's not a plug. It's just sort of the context for this. But I was lucky enough to have some courses early on RPA, introducing RPA, and RPA AI and cognitive tech for leaders was the second course. And so by virtue of it being on a large platform, it gets seen by a lot of people. And what LinkedIn has done, which I think is so interesting, is they've created these sort of learning paths. One of them is on digital transformation, and it's like 24 hours of online learning. By the way, there's a delay in us talking and it going live. So over here, I just watched myself do this bop, and it was distracting. I should not dance on live streams. And so LinkedIn created these learning paths, one on digital transformation. And so by virtue of having one of the courses in that path, I get to see enterprises that are assigning this learning path to their teams. And even more so, I get to see sort of the depth to which they assign it. So who within the team, it's not just going out to like operational heads or C-suite or just one individual who stumbled on this and found it interesting and is passionate about learning about it. They are investing in both the subscription for the platform access, but then investing in dedicating a tremendous amount of time for their teams across the world. I mean, I'm seeing healthcare and pharmaceutical and banking and insurance, you name it, companies all over the planet, Africa, in the Philippines, in the US, in England, in Germany, et cetera, take these courses. And that's really exciting because that's encouraging. It shows that they understand that having a baseline understanding, having a shared vocabulary and nomenclature to this digital transformation adventure is useful. They see that it's worth their people's time to spend dedicating to learn this stuff. It's also an investment in those people. It's giving the sort of the worker of the future and the future of work the skill set they need to be relevant and to continue to grow their career. But the key still is, you know, you can give people the training manual, but if you don't have mandates and support. And I don't mean like mandates as in sort of an order, but mandates as in we're all in this together. We're going to do this, and it's important enough that we're investing time and resources, and we're going to measure what the outcomes are. Without that, and the associated change management and communications and stakeholder management, then you basically just got a lot of people's hopes up, and you got them somewhat excited about the art of the possible, but then you just dash those hopes and you do a frankly poor job of executing on them. And I see that happen all too often, and that's what OG was referring to. So I have hope in the fact that an investment in education across all components of an organization, and then a commitment to follow through with applying that knowledge now, and that hope, that excitement to do something new and different and better, we'll see more and more enterprises legitimately commit to meaningful digital transformation. That's a hell of a lot more than just buying licenses of the next coolest, digital assistant, labor, cloud, augmented, self-learning, autonomous, whatever the heck. So.
There must be an acronym there that someone probably has used and invented in our industry. I doubt there's many left. OG, let me come to you and let me just slightly switch it. Ema and Ian have talked about, people been involved and at the heart of things as well. But do people really need to be involved in every aspect of a digital transformation? Or if the answer is yes, well, why? And if the answer is no, well, where can we avoid getting people involved in case they block? Or what do you think, sir? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so that's that. Let me make a statement here. I think almost 100% of the time when a transformation is failing, it's related to people making wrong decision. So the technology has a certain potential, and again, not talking about it, but it has a potential. But only having people making the right decision will unleash that potential. So in a nutshell, we cannot be successful without having people making the right decision, i.e., where do I apply the technology? When do I apply the technology? How do I apply the technology? That there's a lot of critical key decision that are absolutely required for a project to be successful. And very often, when the project failed and you analyze post-mortem what happened, fail meaning failing to achieve a decent return on investment, i.e., company bleeding money on that project, it's because some decision were made by people, and wrong decision were made. So people is absolutely the key success criteria for any technology implementation, right? So this is at the decision level. When you go and you start basically implementing, distributing, you start scaling, you start basically involving everyone at every aspect of the implementation, at every level of details, you're gonna have people making some decision, big decision, smaller decision. And again, if we don't educate, as Ian said, right? If we don't educate, if we don't involve, if we don't basically sell the idea that everyone is going to gain something from it, those decisions will be poorly taken, and the project has a high chance of failing. So for me, remember, all what technology is doing is it's giving a potential to achieve something, but without the people doing the right thing underneath, nothing will happen.
Okay, so again, people core. Ema, what's your take? What's the most important aspect of a digital transformation program?
I mean, I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but I truly believe that change management is the piece that needs to come into play here. And I'm looking at the comments and I'm going back and forth with seeing some of the conversation that's happening between a few folks here. And it's this, Christopher brought it up, and it's this idea of, we talk about it over and over again. We're talking about it today. I've made other videos about it. It's something that I do interviews on a regular basis. So if we're talking about this so often, Why isn't it sinking in? And I think the answer is that it's not the easy bit. And I talk a lot about this with our customers, and one of my bosses here, his statement is always, and Mark will hear me say this a lot. He always talks about that technology is the easy part. It's the people in the process that gets a little sticky. Because again, if you've got the right technology available to you and the right tools within your toolkit, it's really easy to solve a problem. But if you don't know how to use the hammer, you're not going to be really great with it. And if you don't understand what the process is that you're changing, and you're not working with the people that are centered to that process, it doesn't matter if you've got the right tool, you're going to put a hole in the wall with your hammer. And so it's really, I think the part that makes it challenging is that every human is unique and every organization is unique. And the part where it's truly unique is the people and how we manage the change associated with those people. And so that's where it gets difficult, because it's not as set it and forget it as other things. There was another comment, and I'm not great at multitasking, so I'm not going to go searching for that comment to put it on here. But somebody, mentioned the idea that, and now I lost my train of thought already by trying to go and do that. Here I am trying to say I can't multitask, but when we're looking at change management, it's not something that is quite as easy as bringing in the right tools with a repeatable framework. You have to look at the individuals that are involved. You have to uniquely interact with them. I had a conversation with someone else while prepping for another interview where we were talking about really standard use cases for bringing in intelligent automation. And I know maybe OG can shed some light on this. There are a lot of really great use cases that we can bring in to implement technology. But even when we have frameworks, the part that's going to throw the wrench into it is the people. Even if we have a framework and we have something that's unique about our organization, it's the people. And so we're going to have some sort of change management surrounding any implementation, even if it's a solution that we can put into place and kind of forget that it's there, so to speak. And I see a lot of paragraphs coming in, which is always what I like to see on the third Thursday. And again, I'm going to get myself distracted like Ian did with his dance moves if I start looking too closely. But there's a lot of conversation going on about how do we set up these programs to make change stick? How do we get people to continue to manage the change along with us? And somebody mentioned, these frameworks and these processes that are in place to support that. And I would encourage anybody that's struggling from a standpoint of implementing change, having it stick, having there be momentum behind that change, to look into some of those more formalized, repeatable processes that are out there, and these frameworks for you to implement within your organization. I know we always talk about like no vendors, and they're not my vendor, they're not my partner. But there's organizations out there like ProSci or other change management companies that have these e-learnings, kind of similar to what Ian was saying of, go learn, upskill, educate. I think one of the things that we don't do is spend a lot of time upskilling and educating people on how to manage change. That should be a part of your digital transformation program, and bringing in those toolkits to help you manage that change, I think is really important as well.
Fantastic. There is a danger in multitasking. As men, we're incapable of doing it. I'm delighted to see that you're struggling a little bit as well in the comments. Ian, let me come to you, and then OG will come across to you very briefly. We're 2 minutes to go, folks. As ever, we run out of time. It's just I want to bring in the audience as well, who are brilliant. They're always engaging in this. And James mentioned, and thank you, James, for commenting, without proper governance, folks think they can do anything and end up building something that wasn't the original intent. Have you seen that, and how do you counter that in the real world in an organization?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. People, to use Emma's word from earlier, people want to live and work innovatively, and you've got to find a way to enable that, encourage that, but to also give it guardrails. And so what we saw early on, and especially in large organizations, you have lots of people who want to be living innovatively and creatively and solving problems for themselves. And they have the wherewithal to go do it in small ways, in contained pilots and implementations. And so the byproduct is lots and lots and lots of different, I used to call it techno, or sort of the Tower of Babel as far as the digital space was concerned, where you had every type of tool possible in your organization. And so none of them were ever going to be able to talk to each other as you started to sort of grow those implementations and scale them. And so what you need is some sort of coordination. Governance sounds like it's controlling and constraining you from being creative. So maybe it's shied away from that regard. But you see a lot of centers of excellence now, a lot of cross-domain, cross-functional centers of excellence, because you need to involve IT, you need to involve business, you need to involve, frankly, everybody: marketing, product development, customer support. That's an all too often overlooked component to these centers of excellence. You need to involve the people who are picking up the phones and hearing what your customers say about the products and services you offer, because they can help you define and design better ones. So everyone's got to be involved, but you've got to have a shared mission, and you do have to have solid governance to make sure that there isn't too much creativity and too much roguery going on. Otherwise you aren't able to efficiently invest your resources and achieve those outcomes that we talked about at the beginning, which are not about pilots and robots and technology licenses. They are very much about outcomes. And someone else made a comment too about, is it the technology companies that are, I think it was Christopher Bollard said, and yes, I think very much the people who benefited from more and more licenses being sold are to have to own the responsibility for creating this sort of the chaos that's in the market that does constrain efficient growth, sensible adoption, and successful outcomes of digital transformation programs.
Gosh,
Ian, you found the comment I was looking for when I got distracted.
I'm glad someone found it. You can tell when I run this, it runs over time. I remember the bad old days, Ian, where we all believe 50 robots equals success. OG, conscious of time, let's take a minute, though. You were going to make a comment there, and I don't want to lose any valuable comments before I summarize.
Yes, I think just an observation, I mean, high-level observation, right, for people when they look at adoption of a technology. So in the case here, the rate of automation is directly correlated to the rate of adoption, and the rate of adoption is directly correlated to the perception that an individual will have around what's in for me. What's in for me, the technology that are being adopted very, very, very fast everywhere, not just in our space, are typically adopted fast because it means something. They see what's in for them. As Emma was saying, we're all selfish. What's in for me? So if you are able to translate automation rate to adoption rate to what's in for the people, then you win. Understanding this, this correlation is absolutely key to achieve, the, let's say, targeted automation rate in your organization.
Fantastic. Okay, look, folks, as I'm running it, we've run over time. Apologies, everyone, but let me summarize very briefly. Look, it's not just about the technology at all. It's about the people. People transform organizations, not tech, and it's not about the tech itself. It's about the business outcomes, as OG said. I think a lot of people are agreeing this. Emma came up with the top three there, communicating, selling the benefits. And I can't remember the third one. Emma and I've ran out of time. But I see Steve, Josh, and everyone else has jumped in and said the same thing. It's nice there was a bit of debate here because everybody's come up with slightly different things. I know, and again, it's not a plug for the book, but a lot of this was in the book. And what we'll do when we publish this, we'll put a link to the book to celebrate its 1-year anniversary. We would actually encourage you to do it. So whilst looking slim and dancing our way out for Nick Andrews, we will see everyone and this boy band at our very next session. And now we're going to end. Have a fantastic day, everyone, and we'll see you on the next third Thursday.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you so much. Take care.